Okay, so the thing that I want to talk about today, which is self-regulated learning, I think sits at the very heart of higher education, but often remains invisible, right? So it's about that student capability, as I was saying, called self-regulated learning, or SRL, that as educators, it might be the most important thing that we can nurture in our students, in my opinion. But here are a few questions, right? A few issues. So here's what I was talking about. We often hear build it and they will come. So in higher education, we can build remarkable environments with thoughtful design, cutting edge technology, tailored support services, everything designed to help students succeed. But still, some students, they don't show up at all, or they show up physically, but not cognitively. So they disengage, they drift, they drop out. So why is that, right? Because having access to the opportunity is not the same as having the skills or the will to make use of it. So this is where SRL comes in, right? Not as an add-on, but actually a bridge between the opportunity that we're offering and a meaningful learning experience that we're hoping the students to get. And then the challenge to do that becomes even more urgent with generative AI. So these tools, Gen AI, they have incredible potential to augment learning, but also they can easily be used to bypass the learning. So the temptation to let AI do the thinking is real. So it's that it can actually do the thinking for you in a lot of the tasks. But in a world full of shortcuts, that was interesting. It's not just the students, right, who face tough choices. It's also us as educators. So it puts us in a spot to think, what kind of learning are we designing for? What are we creating tasks that are, inviting meaningful engagement, or ones that are easily outsourced? And are we explicitly teaching students how to think critically about when and how to use AI as a partner in learning? So supporting students to choose the harder, more effortful path to, okay, I could be using AI, but I'm going to choose to actually do this myself, to do, the job that it requires to achieve actual growth. It requires more than willpower. So it requires self-awareness, it requires purpose and regulation on the part of the student, and intentional guidance, design, and modeling on ours as educators. And here's where we need to sort of like zoom out and reflect on what higher education is really about. So beyond content and credentials, our purpose is to foster the development of reflective, ethical, and responsible individuals. So people who understand themselves, who understand their values and their place in the world. So that's at the core of what we do at higher education, besides everything else. But this kind of becoming, it doesn't just happen, right? It requires more than individual motivation. It calls for an intentional educational design. So we're talking about curricula, learning environments, and assessment practices that actually, that actively support that growth. And it demands educators to model and scaffold some sort of like reflective practice, so that it helps the student to look to themselves, and the institutions to create the conditions for students to engage meaningfully with who they're becoming, because they're becoming something during that time that they're engaging with us, right? So it's a shared responsibility of all these different aspects. So it's the students, educators, and institutions to create the conditions in which students can generally become the agents of this journey. So this is why I think building on what we were talking before, that I find that self-regulated learning is truly at the center of higher education. So SRL positions students not just as passive recipients of knowledge, but as active agents in shaping their learning and their own development as well. So we can think of SRL as an active, constructive process where learners, they set goals, they monitor and regulate their cognition, motivation, and behavior, all guided and constrained by the goals of their learning task and the environment in which learning occurs. So it's a combination of both themselves and where they're placed. So it's a very situated relationship there. So it's not just about using strategies. So this is how you set goals. It's about being aware, purposeful, and motivated in how and why those strategies are used. So these are the same skills that help students to navigate complexity, right? So the world, once they are out of higher education and go into their job or wherever they're going, helps them resist the temptation of shortcuts, as we're talking just about AI, and stay committed to their growth of who they are becoming. So now I'll explore a little bit on how SRL looks like in action and how we as educators can help students to develop that awareness, strategies, and confidence that they truly need for their learning. I'm almost there. Thank you for bearing with me. Just 3 more slides and then open for discussion. So this is one of the SRL models that is widely used. It's called the COPES model. The COPES is because it's conditions, operations, products. It's not really controlled. Yeah, okay. You see how it can be COPES. Now it got me thinking COP. Anyway, self-regulated learning, it's not really a trait. It's more like a process, as we're seeing here. It happens in a cycle. So it's a set of skills and mindsets that the students apply before, during, and after their learning. And in this model that was proposed by Phil Winnie, it expands our understanding of SRL, bringing in some underlying psychological elements at play, such as metacognition and motivation. So in this model, when they are performing a task or engaging with a task, they are constantly interpreting the conditions. So they're just asking themselves, what is this task? What do I know about it? Do I need to know more about this task itself? Or what do they want from me? Applying operations. So these are the strategies, such as remembering, organizing, questioning. What do I need to do here to succeed in this task? Producing outcomes or the products. So, either it's a new knowledge or a feedback that I need to create or an insight that I need for a later experience. And then exercising control. So, for example, if I'm not progressing as I was hoping, should I keep going? Should I change my strategy? Should I ask for help? And at the heart of this model, there is metacognition, which is our awareness and control of our thinking, and motivation, which is the drive that gets us to do what we do, basically. And together, they influence all, these actions, whether students then engage, persist, and adapt during their learning. So when we talk about supporting self-regulated learning, we're talking about helping students to strengthen and develop these processes through the way that we teach, through the way that we assess, and the way that we design. So it's a combination of all things. And how do we do that? So the evidence points us into 2 directions. So it's either the direct approach, where you explicitly instruct about SRL. So here's how you set goals. So you teach them how to learn, right? The methods, they're most effective when they're sustained over time. So it's not something that it's going to be, this is how you set goals by. It's something that it takes sometimes over a semester or even more to develop those kind of skills. and that it cover multiple SRL strategies. So what am I setting goals for? How am I going to follow up with that? So there's always a continuity and connection between the strategies. So I'm not showing students, I'm not just saying set goals. I'm also showing them how to set goals, why it matters, and how to reflect on whether those goals were effective. So it sort of like expands into just one-off moment. So that's the direct approach where, I'm literally teaching as a knowledge to them. This is what, how, and why you need to do this. And the indirect approaches is when you actually design the learning environment where you put the student in a position that you actually require them to be the agents of their learning. So for example, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, authentic learning context, they actually invite the student to take the ownership of that. So those are considered the indirect approaches. So how to use technology for, in this way, we can really think about technology as supporting direct and indirect approaches. And we can use instructional tools, right, to teach students about SRL explicitly. And, this is how you do it, or provide them the space where they can set their goals, for example. But we can also provide scaffolded support for students to use the SRL skills. So these are broadly known as embedded tools. So they provide sort of like in-the-moment support while students are working. So it nudges them to reflect, to plan and to monitor. So it's sort of like they're within the task, and with time, these should be scaffolded out. So then the student can start taking over those actions that the tools started to model for him, for example, for them. And these tools can act like personalized SRL coaches now with the use of AI and chatbots, right? So they can offer strategy suggestions, they can prompt reflection, they can give real-time feedback, they can help students plan and self-assess and all of that. But this obviously comes with a responsibility. As I was saying, SRL, at the heart of SRL is student agency. So we cannot let the tool to do the learning for them, or if they're doing at the beginning, it's got to be with the vision that it will somehow be faded so the student can take over. So the goal is also always to support self-regulation, but not automate it. All right, and that's it. So as I wrap up, that's all I wanted to sort of like paint the picture of SRL in higher education, what it is, why it matters, and how we might support it. I would love to hear from you in our discussion soon, about how and why this resonates with your teaching practice in your learning environments. So thank you very much.